Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, June the 29th, 2023. In these videos, I try to demonstrate how wonderful astrology is, but there's a bit of selection bias there. In other words, I tend to choose examples which illustrate my point well. But what about examples that don't illustrate my point well? What about examples that just show that maybe astrology doesn't work? So today I'm going to look at a chart of something which really does cast some doubt on astrology. Of course, it's only one chart, but for the sake of balance, I want to show you an illustration of astrology not working. And this is a chart of the iPhone launch. The iPhone was launched, I believe, 16 years ago today, on June the 29th, 2007, at 6 p.m. So I want to look at the chart for this, and really it doesn't make sense. iPhone, fantastic success as far as I understand it. I've never owned an iPhone. I've never owned any Apple product, but so I'm told. It was a great success. So you would have expected a fantastic chart. And I was really hoping when I looked at the iPhone chart that I'd find something wonderful, but no. But I'm still going to show it to you just to show that we do have to be a bit careful. Anyway, before I look at this, I'm going to look at today's astrology. So we'll start off by looking at the planets for today. And today is Thursday, June the 29th, 2023. Now that, by the way, of course, is a picture of an iPhone, just to show what my main topic is going to be. So, here's our chart for 12 p.m. New York time, June the 29th today. So the moon continues to be in Scorpio. It's starting to move into late Scorpio. So it's moving out of the Via Combusta. The Via Combusta is the area of the sky between 15 Libra and 15 Scorpio. And when you have the moon moving through the Via Combusta, you can get all sorts of weird stuff going on. Things mightn't go to plan. There might be unexpected events, that kind of thing. So with the moon moving into late Scorpio, in one sense, there is a kind of an improvement. Things are less unstable. On the other hand, you can see that the moon in Scorpio is making a square to Venus, and then it will make an opposition to Uranus in Taurus. So with Moon square Venus, yes, it's quite emotional, these two feminine planets in square aspect, but it's emotion that doesn't really work very well. I think relationships could in some respects be quite difficult because of this emotional mismatch between moon in Scorpio and Venus in Leo. Plus the fact, really towards the end of the day, if you're in the US, you've got the moon making an opposition to Uranus. That is that's pretty unstable. And it's quite rigid as well. So you've got strong feelings, strong emotions, a lot of anger, but it's not finding a coherent way of expressing itself, and that could cause some problems. Also notice that the sun is starting to move towards a semi-square with Mars. Now the sun and Mars at the moment are going roughly the same speed, but the sun is of course going slightly faster. So with the sun moving towards a semi-square with Mars, over the next, few days, weeks, there's going to be an increasing amount of general anger. The Sun and the Mars are the two male planets in astrology, and they're quite headstrong. And so as they move towards this semi-square, there's going to be more and more aggression, people being headstrong, people being arrogant, and so forth. But today, the Sun and Mars, as this semi-square starts to form, both planets are on the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. So the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint is often about economic cycles. It's about what's going on in the world in an economic sense. It's about inflation, because, Jupiter is about expansion, spending money. Saturn is about conserving money. And so I think many of us may be just looking at the economic situation, perhaps, when one buys things and realize how much things cost, how much the government has messed things up. It's going to make us angry. And so we don't want to take it out on other people. We should take it out on the government, or we should at least blame the government, blame economists. Economists, they tend to get it wrong. It's a kind of a hopeless profession, being an economist. But this kind of stuff is going to make us annoyed, having, the Sun and the Mars hitting the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. Also, the Sun is aspecting the Mars-Uranus midpoint. We can actually see this very well in the chart. So there's Uranus at around 21, 22 Taurus. There is Mars at 23, 28 Leo, and the Sun is right in the middle. And, it's just the beginning, and tomorrow it's going to be even closer. So with Sun on the Mars-Uranus midpoint, this could be quite explosive. We should certainly look around to see what's happening in the world. And in terms of our own environment, we just need to be very careful. I know that I've been talking about risk and how we should avoid it for some time. The message continues. The situation is getting explosive. We don't want to do anything to make matters even worse. One other midpoint I want to talk about is the fact that Uranus is square the Venus-Mars midpoint. It's quite close today. So Venus-Mars is about sexuality. Venus, female sexuality, Mars, male sexuality. When you put Uranus on the Venus-Mars midpoint, it can be about falling in love and out of love very quickly. And it can be about passing passion, passing affection. So if today, for example, someone tells you they're crazy about you, don't necessarily take it too seriously, because they might change their mind by tomorrow. So don't get excited by sudden displays of affection, thinking that everything's sorted out romantically, because these sudden displays of affection could be very, very temporary. Anyway, now let's move on to my forecasts for the 12 signs. So here they are, my forecast for today, which is Thursday, June the 29th, 2023. Aries, there are a lot of things making you annoyed, but I think the global situation is beginning to weigh on your mind, and your hunches about politics and economics may well be correct. And this is because Mars, ruler of Aries, is on the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint, or is aspecting the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. Taurus, relationships are important, but you also know that they're highly disruptive. So, is it really possible to have your cake and eat it? Gemini, as soon as you sort one thing out, another thing descends into chaos. Perhaps you should take a step back. Cancer, you want to be happy and creative in your own way. but certain people want to spoil the fun. You have to be gently assertive and make it clear that it's your rights that matter. Leo, you have a clear idea about what you want, and by keeping a low profile, you can make some excellent plans. But don't allow anger to upset your balance. Virgo, you need to conserve your energy and not travel unless you really have to. Expansion and consolidation should be part of the same movement. Libra, you're finding other people's emotions to be annoying, particularly if they are getting angry about money. Better to go somewhere else than to pretend that you're someone you're not. Scorpio, you're starting to feel tense, especially in company. You're wary of getting involved in a clash with other people, but it may come to that if you're not careful. But maybe it's all part of a wider societal issue which goes beyond the individual. Sagittarius, why can't things be simple? The world is unnecessarily complicated, especially on an emotional level, and straight answers are countered with complicated questions and perhaps also complicated criticisms. Capricorn, you continue to be aware of your fundamental power, and if you want to sort something out, then delay might be inadvisable. Aquarius, relationships hold together in spite of an uncertain environment. On your own turf, your attractiveness is at a maximum. Pisces, there are places that are welcoming and you need to seek them out. And it's all about having a philosophy of life which can be shared and appreciated. So what I'm going to do now is move to the I Ching. So as always, I threw 3 coins up in the air and I asked the question, what is Thursday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And the hexagram I got was locked. Number 8, holding together. Now, what this hexagram means is that what we have to do, or what we should be striving to do, is to bring people together and ideally show some leadership. Yes, we have to be leaders, supposedly, but it's locked. This is not going to be easy. We just may find that we just simply don't have the ability to do it. Indeed, the I Ching asks that we consult the oracle again to see if we really can do it, whether we really can show leadership. I did consider consulting the oracle again, but I decided not to. I think it's up to you to consider whether you're up to it. It's not for me to tell you whether or not you're up to it. So consider whether you can do it, because, you know, it is required. It's what you should be trying to do. But if you can't do it, don't beat yourself up about it. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the I Ching. And I am now going to turn back to the charts, and I am going to look at the chart for the time when the iPhone was released. And this, let's just find it. Oh, wrong one. iPhone. So the iPhone was released on June the 29th, 2007 at 6 p.m. local time. Now that's depended on, so it depended where you were. So I've set this chart for New York because 6 p.m. took place in New York before, for example, it took place in not Los Angeles. So the question is, was this a good time to release the iPhone? And if I'd been an astrologer, there's no way I would have chosen this chart. So let's look at some of the problems in this chart. Firstly, the moon. The moon is at 29 degrees 27 Sagittarius, and I should say, I know I said it for New York. If I've set it for another eastern place, let's say I'd set it for Miami, the chart would not have been so different, and the moon still would have been at 29:57 Sagittarius. So, in other words, the moon was deeply void of course. It was on the verge of moving into Capricorn. And once it had moved into Capricorn, it would have been a full moon, just before a full moon. And to launch a product just before a full moon doesn't strike me as being advisable. The full moon is like, you're in the middle of the cycle, but, the moon is damaged by being opposition the sun. So the moon does not strike me as being in a great position. At the same time, this is an iPhone. The iPhone is about communication, and what do we all know about communication and astrology? Yeah, don't do it when Mercury is retrograde. And what's Mercury doing? Mercury is retrograde in Cancer. And it's conjunct the Sun. In other words, Mercury is combust, and it's in the 8th house. So Mercury is in an absolutely disastrous position. It just couldn't be any worse. Yet this was a time when the iPhone was launched. It should have been a disaster, according to the theory. Apparently it was not a disaster. Apparently it was a major success. So that is really perplexing. The only good thing about this chart is that Sagittarius is rising. And again, Sagittarius was rising. This chart is set for New York. But if you'd set the chart for Miami, Sagittarius would still have been rising. So Sagittarius was rising. Jupiter was in Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So that Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 1st house is really strong. And that is, if you like, the saving grace of the chart. However, overall, particularly with that Mercury in a terrible position, this is just no good. So we can almost certainly say that iPhone did not consult an astrologer when launching. Apple did not consult an astrologer when they launched the iPhone. I mean, it's also a warning for all of us who are into astrology. It's not the end of the world if we start something with bad planetary positions. And likewise with Mercury retrograde, we all talk about how bad Mercury retrograde is, but this shows that even when Mercury is retrograde, things can be okay. So I thought it was a good idea to be critical of astrology, to show you that astrology doesn't always work. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.